Hi, it's Kristen and it's time for another Feminist Friday. This time around I'm going to be reading a little contemporary book that I'm hoping will be quite fun, and although it's going to deal with sexism, I'm hoping it'll be fairly light-hearted. So we have No Worries If Not by Lucy Nichol. This follows our main character Charlotte, who is generally very polite, never wants to bother anyone, and has lived her life just being very I guess passive towards other people and lets them sort of do what they want. And she realizes after a particularly stressful week, I guess, that she has been saying sorry a lot and saying no worries if not to people, and she makes this choice that she's gonna stop doing that. She's gonna stop saying sorry when she doesn't need to. She's gonna stop saying no worries if not. She's gonna stop letting people get away with stuff or feeling like she needs to apologize when she absolutely doesn't. I thought that sounded interesting. I know that this is a phrase that a lot of people, especially women, use. It's an ingrained mindset of immediately wanting to not be a bother and not be seen to be being annoying or demanding, and wanting to be seen as apologetic and helpful, but actually that can be a hindrance to yourself and in many different scenarios in life. I think women are often overly polite to men who are actually bothering them in a defensive, self-defensive way. And at work you don't want to be seen as being difficult, or if you're too demanding as a woman you're often seen as bossy. So I think a lot of people do it consciously, unconsciously. I'm gonna give this one a go. I'm hoping, because it's contemporary, that I will get through it quite fast. I tend to read contemporary that's just about women's lives quite quickly. So yeah, it says one little word, one bad habit, 1 year to stop saying sorry. So let's give this one a go and hope I enjoy it.
A little update on the book. I am just over 100 pages in. I'm enjoying it so far. It's reading very quickly. Basically, we've had the sort of setup now. So our main character, Charlotte, has just found that she's apologizing for everything, even when she needn't be, or when she's actively uncomfortable in a situation. She's still trying to overcompensate so other people don't feel uncomfortable, even though she's not the one who's doing anything wrong. So she's got a boss who is a bit of a sleazy guy, and he keeps saying oh, I can help you out, I can get you in with the person above him in the company, maybe we should go for a drink and discuss it. And she's like, I really don't want to, but how can I say no in a polite way that won't piss him off and make things difficult and awkward? And I don't want to be mean to him, but actually he is completely inappropriate. And then she apologizes at her cervical smear test for having a tilted cervix, and the woman doing the smear test is like, why are you apologizing for something that you literally can't control because it's just how your body is. And so yeah, she finds herself like apologizing a lot or saying like no worries when actually like it is a concern, or yeah, just like overcompensating to make other people feel better when she herself does not feel good in a situation. And her flatmate points this out to her, and another woman at work points this out to her, and she's like, maybe I need to actually take this on board. And that's basically the point I've got to, is where she's stopped apologizing. She'll be like typing an email going, hi so and so, sorry to bother you, and then she'll be like, no, let me delete that, here's the thing I'm actually just saying. Or she'll be working out how to like let someone down, like as politely or nicely as possible, even when the person she's like trying to let down she doesn't like and she doesn't think they're a good person. She's like, let me backtrack and just say, no, that's not appropriate and I can't, rather than going, oh well, I don't know, not really, but like no offense, or stuff like that. She's decided to make that change, and she said she was going to do it for a month, and now she said to her flatmate, no, I'm going to do it for a year. And so we will see where that goes, what happens with it. But yeah, I'm liking it so far. It's not like mind-blowing, it's not like a hugely new concept, but I am enjoying it. I think it's very relatable, it's quite humorously written, I'm like having a fun time with it, and like I said, I'm reading it very quickly, it's very readable. And yeah, I'm excited to see this main character stand up for herself, and like I'm gonna take some pointers from her, because I've found myself like doing this recently, which I know like a lot of women do. I always put like, sorry to bother you in like messages and emails, and if someone's like drops out of doing something, I'm always like, no worries, when actually like it is a bit of a worry, like you said you were going to do a thing and you haven't done it, which means I can't do my thing now because you've not done your thing, so it's not really no worries. Getting into my life now, I did it recently with a staff meeting. I always work all day on a Wednesday, and then I work like other hours throughout the week depending on like what's needed, but I almost never work on a Monday unless there's like an actual like event or something specifically happening. But even then, it's like I'll come in for like a couple of hours, get what needs to be done, and then go. But that's like really rare at all that I will work on a Monday, because like that's basically Monday is my day off. And whenever we have session leader meetings, the coordinator is always like, oh well, these other session leaders, it either needs to be on a Monday or a Tuesday to suit them. And I'm okay with that, because like there are circumstances around those co-workers that it makes sense that we fit it on a day that they would come in anyway, and those are their working days. And then I have another co-worker who just like volunteers somewhere on a Tuesday, and so is always like, I can't do a Tuesday. So it always falls to me to come in extra on a Monday on my non-working day. And I don't live near my work, so it's like a journey in for an hour-long meeting and then getting home again. Like that hour-long meeting is like basically my entire morning is taken up with like traveling to and from it. I always come in, I'm always the one who changes around what I'm doing so that I can come in for a meeting. But at the moment, my Mondays are actually really busy with like life stuff and like my running training plan and having to like fit stuff around that. And so Mondays really aren't good for me. And the coordinator's been trying to like organize a session leader meeting. And it was like, right, what Monday can people do out of these Mondays? There was like one Monday that I was like, I'm actually off that week. I've booked that week off work. So I can't do that Monday because I'm not in at all that week. And then I was like, you know what? Actually, like, why am I rearranging my life when no one else is? Like, no one else is having to move stuff around to do this staff meeting, just me. And so I just messaged and went, I'm really busy on Mondays. Mondays are not a good day for me at the moment. Like, I actually just can't do Mondays. But like, you guys meet without me as long as like you get the minutes to me by this date, so I can then do like part of my work that needs meeting minutes. So then the coordinator was like messaging the woman who volunteers on a Tuesday and was like, is there any possibility that like you could not volunteer one Tuesday so that we could do the meeting on a Tuesday instead? And so she was like, yeah, I guess so. And then and then the coordinator, he suggested the Tuesday of the week that I had already said I am on holiday that week. I'm off work that week. And he was like, how about this day? And so again, I was like, I am not working that week. Like, regardless of being free on that Tuesday, that is time I've booked off. I'm not coming in for a meeting. And there was so much back and forth. And the whole time I was like, I could just give in and go, actually, like, I could do this day. And I was like, no, why should I? To be honest, I'm always the one who makes the effort to come in extra for these meetings when no one else does. And I'm really busy. And why should I rearrange my entire life when no one else is, apart from the woman who's now saying she won't volunteer on Monday? But it's like, it's me and her making changes to our schedules and working things around so that like this man can hold a meeting when he wants to. So I stood up for myself and I said no. Like, we have now arranged a meeting time, and I was like, I'm not doing a Monday because I'm really busy. Mondays don't work for me. I'm not coming in on my day off, and I'm not coming in on the week off that I have. It's all worked out in the end, but there was a lot of faff. But I refused to give in, and I feel like that is the energy of this book, and I'm going to carry that energy. I'm going to stop saying, sorry to bother you, can you do XYZ that I've asked you to do 5 times? I'm just going to say, hey, where's that work that I'm waiting on? And I think a lot of men will see that as rudeness because women, like, stereotypically don't stand up for themselves as much. But like, let's do it. Let's be like brash women. And if that's taken as rudeness because you don't back down to every man or other woman, like, so be it. But yeah, I'm excited to see her carry that energy through and see what she stops apologizing for. So yeah, enjoying it so far. So I'm still making my way through No Worries If Not, and I'm still enjoying it. It's still humorous, it's entertaining, it's like quick to read when I am actually reading it. But I am finding it a little bit almost like repetitive in that a scenario circumstance comes up, she goes to apologize or thinks that she should apologize, or like just reflexively goes to say sorry, and then either like her own thoughts will kick in and she'll go, wait, no, I'm not going to say sorry, or the person she's with will be like, do you realize what you're about to say? And she'll be like, oh yeah, I'm not saying sorry. It's like, okay, we get that. And then also there's a sort of romantic subplot with the guy. These are slight spoilers. The guy that she first like has a confrontation with when she decides not to put up with shit. So she's like sitting on a train, and this guy sits next to her, and he's like manspreading, and so she says like, "Can you not?" And he ignores her, and she's like, "Seriously, like, I need some space." And he ignores her again, and then she like kicks off at him. And then it turns out that he'd had his headphones in, and so he hadn't actually heard her say, "Can you move your legs?" He just hears her like yelling at him. But it turns out he's really cute. Then he like keeps popping up in her life. She keeps like bumping into him, and every interaction they have, she's like just off the bat quite hostile with him. And so she's like rude to him in a scenario, and then she's like, "Oh, why did I do that? Even though I'm like not saying sorry, that doesn't mean I have to be rude. I'm such a dickhead." And then she'll bump into him again and have another encounter with him and be like unnecessarily off with him, and then be like, "God, I was such a bitch. There was no need to say that. Now he must think I'm horrible." And like that happens a few times. And that alongside like these other scenarios that feel a bit repetitive, I'm just like, okay, like we get it. Is anything like new and different actually gonna happen? And I know that like it's meant to be just like contemporary sort of slice of life. There isn't much plot. It's more about her like internal changes, but there's an element where I'm just like, okay, we get it. We get like the message that the author is giving through this character. We get that this character is like making a change, and like obviously you've got to unlearn behaviors, so like that is where the repetitiveness makes sense, because every time you go to do something that you just naturally do, you got to stop yourself and think about it. So like it does make sense, but in terms of reading, it's not the most interesting thing to read very similar situations over and over again. So I sort of just like want something else to happen, or for this character to just like commit to this and like commit to how she's acting one way or another. Those are my little niggles with it. But like I said, it's still like entertaining me. I'm still enjoying it. And it's also not like I have these issues with it and it's a slog to get through, because it really isn't. It's very readable. And even though I know that I'm not gonna rate this like 4-star, 5-star incredible, I do think it is relatable, and I can think of like women I know who I would lend this to or recommend this to. So yeah, it's not like I'm not wasting my time reading it. I'm still having fun. And I think like to some degree, I think you could like have a really good chat about this book with someone else. I think I'll just like update you again with final thoughts, because yeah, I'm getting through it quite quickly and I don't think anything wild is going to happen that I'm going to have to update before I finish it on. So I will see you for like one more wrap up clip. So overall, I liked this one. I thought it was fun. It was very readable. It was light-hearted for the most part, but also did talk about important like subjects and portrayed important like scenarios and discussed things obviously to do with sexism and misogyny and just like being treated well as a person. I do think it handled that well, and I do think there was like interesting discussion around the main character and her commitment to
stopping apologising for things that she doesn't need to actually apologise for. But within that, it was like, you can also then become aware of like when you should actually apologise for something. You don't need to go, I'm no longer saying no worries, I'm no longer saying sorry, I'm gonna stand up for myself and be bold, etc. Because like you can do all those things, but then also, yeah, acknowledge that actually that time you were just kind of rude, and so you should apologize for that. And like, was the other thing actually the other person's fault? And if not, like, you don't need to kick off at them, but if it was their fault, then you don't need to apologize. And also, I liked that there was an element with Charlotte and her boss where he was being like overly friendly, quite inappropriate, like saying that he'd help her with like an interview and like give her tips on getting a promotion, and she was like, yeah, no, that would be great, and he'd be like, okay, let's do it over a drink, and she was like, that, why does it need to be over a drink? That feels like unnecessary. And so she and another female co-worker really didn't like their boss and just got like bad vibes from him, well within reason to. But then there's a scene with the boss where he is very like vulnerable in a situation that only Charlotte is around to see, and she thinks like, oh, maybe now there's like an understanding between us. But although in the moment he is actually quite thankful to Charlotte, afterwards he puts on this like bravado and like this very much like, we do not talk about that situation kind of thing, and almost like then punishes her because he's being vulnerable in front of her. And she has this mentality of like, I should say something against him because in all these ways he's been inappropriate, but then like I do feel bad because like he did have this really like awful moment and I feel bad for him because of that. But actually, like, just because he's human and we all have moments where we're anxious or vulnerable or like something's going on and you can feel bad for someone in a situation, that doesn't negate all the other things that they've done wrong, and actually like they deserve to be called out for stuff. Like, just because they've done one thing with you where you see a different side to them, it doesn't mean that actually like they don't deserve to I was gonna say have their comeuppance, that feels a little intense. They still deserve to be called out, to be, I don't know, punished in certain scenarios, or just be dealt with in some way. Particularly talking about like a professional setting here. So I did like that there was like some nuance. I liked also Charlotte and her roommate Mush's relationship. They're like best friends since uni. I liked that it was a strong relationship between a man and a woman that was completely platonic, and like they'd even said in the past like they'd had a bit of a thing and then realised that that like was not their connection, that was not what their relationship was, and so they had just been best friends ever since, even though other people sometimes wonder if they're like gonna get together eventually or something, because one of my best friends is a man. This year will be 20 years of us knowing each other, and yeah, he's like one of my best friends. But I think some people like when we attend things together just because we're like best friends and I'm going to an event and I want someone to come with me, and he's a friend that I've brought along, people often assume boyfriend. Or if I say, no, we're just friends, they're like, but maybe more. And I'm like, no, we're literally just friends. We've known each other for so long. Yeah, I really appreciate male-female friendships that are just friendships, and particularly like male-female friendships that don't end when the characters are like in relationships with other people. So I liked that. I didn't really feel much with the romance in here though. I think because it didn't like come into it until like towards the end, like the last maybe half to a third, and there were like only a few scenes, all of which did not go well until like the very end when things came together. So I guess it wasn't really a romance, it was more like the promise of she will have this relationship, as you sort of saw in like the epilogue. But I was also sort of like, I don't know that the book needed that element to it so much. I don't know, I felt more invested in her like work life scenario that she was dealing with her like sexist boss, and her wanting to like have more opportunities and like grow at work, and her relationships with like certain other colleagues. I was much more invested in that, and then her friendship with Mush, than I was in the romantic or potential romance at any point really. So yeah, this was fun, but also like dealt with important topics, and I have in my head like certain friends that I would recommend this to, and like a certain kind of person that I would recommend this to. I think if like you generally like contemporary books, I'm thinking like, I don't know, like Marion Keyes, Beth O'Leary, those kind of books. I think you could like this, because I would recommend this to my friend who got me Are We Having Fun Yet by Lucy Mangan, which I liked but didn't love. It was like entertaining, it was humorous. I think I gave it like 3 stars. But she enjoyed that book more than I did, and so I think I would recommend this to her, because it does have those like kind of overblown humorous moments that are like sort of awkward, and then the internal monologue and her like overthinking things I think is quite relatable. So yes, if you like contemporary, if you like books that do just sort of talk about like women's issues, in like, well, the characters do discuss it, but then often like in our main character's internal monologue, she's like working through the way she thinks about certain things about like being a woman and stuff. I liked that a lot of this was about like smear tests, and like talking about having smear tests done, and talking about like cervixes and like periods and stuff like that, because that is like a big part of a lot of women's lives, most women's lives, and yeah, is like so taboo. So I liked that element. Overall, I'd give this like 3 stars, because I liked it and it was very relatable and very readable, and like I said, I had a good time with it, but I don't know that it did anything super special. I think if this is like the one of the first books you read by like a female author about like being a woman and like women's issues and sexism, and it's told in this, like I said, relatable, humorous way, I think this would really hit. But because I've read like so much fiction and non-fiction to do with like feminism and sexism, this is more just like a re-establishing things I already think, so it's not adding anything new. So this was like purely sort of more entertainment for me than it was me going, I hadn't thought about that. Oh, but like that's fine, because like that's the purpose of this book, I think, was just to entertain, and like maybe you'd get certain messages from it, but for me none of those like messages were new, and that's fine. But because of that, yeah, it didn't like hit as hard as it like potentially could have. 3 stars, not bad, like 3.25 maybe. I think I like would reread this if I was just wanting something like quick and that I knew I'd found entertaining and I knew I'd found funny and stuff. And again, like I would recommend this to like particular people. So not a bad book by any means. And I had a good time. So a decent read for me, I think. And like, although I say it's not introducing like any new concepts to me, I do feel like since reading this I have been so much more aware of when I'm messaging people and emailing people of like how much I'm saying like no worries, or sorry to bother you, or sorry about this, or I'm just asking, like I'm just wondering if I can get an answer about this, I just want to know. I am like taking that wording out of some stuff when it's like actually like it's it's not no worries if not, because if you don't do this thing that you were supposed to do, actually that is an issue. And like I'm not sorry to bother you because it is actually during the workday and you have not given me a piece of information that you were supposed to. So just please give me that piece of information. Not sorry. So yes, I am more aware of like changing things. And like sometimes it's okay to say no worries if not, because like actually in certain scenarios, if someone like can't do something or doesn't want to do something, it is genuinely no worries. It's just about knowing like when to apologize or be more gracious, or like have the time and like use certain phrases, and when like you really don't need to. So yes, that is a takeaway from this, I guess. Would recommend to like a particular audience. So yes, that is No Worries If Not. Have you read this one? Let me know down below, and I will see you soon with another video. Bye!